They come with pictograms, and we're going to cover that in this video. It's very shorter than me standing up here going over all 16 sections, which is required by law. What they've done is, it's part of the GHS, Global Harmony System. You go anywhere in the world now, all the SDSs are standardized. In the past, you could pick up an SDS and all of them would look different. Some of them one page, everything condensed down. Some of them didn't have the same, they weren't labeled in the same sections. So now, because of the global harmonization of these SDSs, everything's standard, it's the same. You go anywhere, pick up any chemical, the SDS is laid out in the same order, okay? And that's what they've done, and that's what we mean by HAZCOM, okay? Your SDSs, every chemical has one. If it doesn't have it, if you've got a chemical that does not have a safety data sheet, you let me know, okay? I don't want you to go out and buy chemicals and bring them in either. If you go out and you buy them and you bring them in, not only have you violated new lead policy, you've violated the base policy. They have an authorized usage list, AUL, and I have to update that every year. And what that is the base says these are the only authorized chemicals you can use. Whatever's on that list, that's all you can use. Okay. So if you bring something new in from home and you don't have an SDS on it, somebody comes by, checks our locker, checks the shop, and they find the chemical and they say, show me the SDS on this. You can't do it, we're in trouble. Okay. You gotta have an SDS for everything that we use. Okay. This little video, it's misleading, does cover all 16 sections and covers what's in each 16 section, each of the 16 sections. We're really primarily only interested in the first 8. Okay. The rest of it's just information for those people who transport it, those people who take it apart, whatever. The first 8 are what we're interested in. But you have to know what's in each of the 16 sections. Okay, Brad, go ahead.
You've no doubt heard the term hazard communication and the acronym MSDS, short for Material Safety Data Sheet. The Hazard Communication Standard requires employers to train employees about the hazards of chemicals and substances in the workplace. In 2003, the United Nations adopted the globally harmonized system of classifying and labeling chemicals. Here's a new acronym you'll be hearing a lot more in the future, GHS. The GHS includes criteria for the classification of health, physical, and environmental hazards, as well as specifying what information should be included on labels of hazardous chemicals, as well as safety data sheets. Since 1992, the United Nations have been working to create and enhance a globally harmonized system for the classification and labeling of chemicals that can be used by importers, distributors, and manufacturers worldwide. The United States was an active participant in the development of the GHS and is also a member of the UN bodies established to maintain and coordinate implementation of the system. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, has mandated changes to the existing hazard communication standard that adopt the globally harmonized system. In this video, we'll go over information about the new globally harmonized system of hazard communication. Specific changes to be discussed include new container label formatting, product identifiers, signal words, pictograms, hazard statements, precautionary statements, and safety data sheets. On or before June 1st, 2015, all of the following changes to the Hazard Communication Standard will take effect. Material Safety Data Sheets, or MSDS, will become Safety Data Sheets, or SDS. The new SDS will serve the same purpose as the old MSDS. The SDS will be in a standardized format and easier to read. Labels on hazardous chemicals will include pictograms which visually identify the main hazards. Signal words will be required on all labels where hazards exist. The signal word warning will indicate less serious risks, and the signal word danger will indicate more serious risk. Hazard statements will be required on labels to explain what the hazard is. Precautionary statements will be required to explain what you should do to protect yourself from the hazard. All labels will be required to have pictograms, a signal word, hazard and precautionary statements, the product identifier, and supplier identification. Labels will vary but must still contain all the following elements. Product identifier. This can be the chemical name, code number, or batch number. The manufacturer, importer, or distributor can decide the appropriate product identifier, but the same product identifier must be on both the label and in Section 1 of the SDS. There are two signal words in the GHS system, danger and warning. These signal words are used to communicate the level of hazard on both the label and the SDS. The appropriate signal word to use is set out by the classification system. For example, the signal word for self-heating substances and mixtures, Category 1, is danger, while warning is used for the less serious Category 2. There are occasions where no signal word will be called for. The GHS will require pictograms on labels to alert users of the chemical hazards to which they may be exposed. Each pictogram consists of a symbol on a white background framed within a red border and represents a distinct hazard. The pictogram on the label is determined by the chemical hazard classification. There are 8 pictograms required by the new standard and 1 that is optional. The health hazard pictogram is used for chemicals that pose a risk to your health if used improperly. The flame pictogram indicates there is a risk of fire, and you should be especially concerned about ignition sources and combustible materials. The exclamation mark pictogram will usually be used in combination with a health hazard pictogram to signify particular health risks which are less severe than the skull and crossbones category. The skull and crossbones pictogram will usually be used in combination with a health hazard pictogram to signify particularly hazardous chemicals. Chemicals with acute toxicity are chemicals that will produce adverse effects following a single dose of the substance. The gas cylinder pictogram alerts you to the physical hazards inherent in the use and storage of compressed gas. The corrosion pictogram should prompt you to be especially aware of PPE and storage requirements. Chemicals marked with an exploding bomb pictogram pose a significant physical risk and should be treated with extreme caution. Oxidizers are chemicals that produce additional oxygen in an environment which may cause or contribute to the combustion of other materials. These chemicals will be indicated with a flame over circle pictogram. The environment pictogram is a non-mandatory category. I've included it here for your information. Hazard statements are used to describe the nature of the chemical hazards, including where appropriate, the degree of hazard. All of the applicable hazard statements must appear on the label. Hazard statements may be combined where appropriate to reduce redundancies and improve readability. Precautionary statements are defined as a phrase that describes recommended measures that should be taken to minimize or prevent adverse effects from exposure to hazardous chemicals or improper storage or handling. The new GHS standard requires that chemical safety data sheets consist of 16 specific sections. Section 1, identification, includes product identifier, manufacturer or distributor name, address, phone number, emergency phone number, recommended use, and restrictions on use. Section 2, hazard identification, includes all hazards associated with the chemical and required label elements. Section 3, composition information on ingredients, includes information on chemical ingredients and trade secret claims. Section 4, first aid measures, includes important symptoms, effects, acute, delayed, or required treatment. Section 5, firefighting measures, lists suitable extinguishing techniques and equipment, chemical reactions as a result of fire. Section 6, accidental release measures, lists emergency procedures, protective equipment, proper methods of containment and cleanup. Section 7, handling and storage, lists precautions for safe handling and storage, including incompatibilities. Section 8, exposure controls and personal protection, lists OSHA's permissible exposure limits, or PELs, threshold limit values, or TLVs, appropriate engineering controls, and proper personal protective equipment. Section 9, physical and chemical properties, lists the chemical's characteristics. Section 10, stability and reactivity, lists chemical stability and possibility of hazardous reactions. Section 11, toxicological information, includes routes of exposure, related symptoms, acute and chronic effects, and numerical measures of toxicity. Section 12, ecological information, provides information to evaluate the environmental impact of the chemical if it were released to the environment. Section 13, disposal consideration, provides guidance on proper disposal practices, recycling or reclamation of the chemical or its container, and safe handling practices. Section 14, transport information, provides guidance on classification information for shipping, transporting of hazardous chemicals by road, air, rail, or sea. Section 15, regulatory information, identifies the safety, health, and environmental regulations specific for the product that is not indicated anywhere else on the SDS. Section 16, other information, includes the date of preparation or last revision of the SDS. For more information on the globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of chemicals, visit this website.
The main thing we want you to know about these SDSs is that you want to know where they're located. You want to know who manufactured it and what it is, because, and then the first aid required if somebody were to inhale it, drink it, or have a reaction to it. You want to know what the first aid measures are. You want to go to the SDS to find that. You don't want to just immediately start doing some kind of a first aid without knowing what the reaction might be. Okay? It used to be anything, anytime you ingested anything, it was automatic induced vomiting. A lot of these say do not induce vomiting. So you need to read and know that. Okay. The other thing is you're going to be out there without labels. You know, they require you to have a label. The label has to have certain things, emergency phone numbers in case of first aid questions or first aid application. You have to know who the manufacturer is and what the chemical name is, and so those are required on labels. Anything stored in our lockers had better have a label. Okay. It might be an empty bottle and there's no label on it. That's fine. But if you've got something in there with a chemical in it and no label, you don't know what that is. You don't know what's in that bottle. You don't know what the health hazards are. So do not take anything off the shelf without a label. Do not put anything on the shelf without a label. OSHA frowns on that. Basic environmental frowns on it. Everybody does. Okay. Use the SDS for anything that you don't know about the material. You know, what kind of health hazards it causes, what kind of first aid is required, what kind of personal protective equipment is required. It will tell you. And does that mean that you can do less than what it tells, you can wear less than what it tells you? No. If it requires certain PPE, you don that PPE, all of it. Even if you're not sure, read the SDS, what kind of personal protective equipment. If you're mixing fuel and oil, or you're fueling, you should be wearing some kind of eye protection, some kind of gloves to protect your hands. That stuff does react with your hands, okay? Read the SDS before you start using the chemical. It's important, you know, I can't emphasize it enough, because once again, we're not here to get you hurt. We're here to provide a safe environment, and we give you the tools to do that. It's up to you to use the tools we give you. Okay, any questions on HAZCOM? The hazardous, the SDSs, where they are, what's contained in them. You're not gonna remember all 16 sections, what's in it, but at some point in time, take a look at the SDS. Don't just assume that, you know, somebody told you what's in it and what kind of protective equipment you're supposed to have and what kind of health hazards it presents. Read it for yourself. Shane?
The safety data sheet that they showed had a lot of information on it. There's times I went to the store or something, or you know, hardware store, buy a can of WD-40 and I look at it. There's a lot more information that they showed, like on that safety data sheet, than you would find just like almost on the container of some of the materials.
Well, there's the requirements on the container, on the label, are the first aid, emergency numbers, the manufacturer, and the brand name and the ingredients, what's in it. SDS covers that, but they're in different sections of it. Most of the information that you're gonna find on the label is in section 1, which identifies the manufacturer, identifies the chemical, or the brand name of it, and then the chemical that's in it, and what kind of first aid measures are required. Okay. Those are generally found in the first aid sections. That's why I told you that first aid really apply to us, in that the first aid is there, the firefighting portion's in there, what to do, you know, in case of spills and stuff like that.